Good evening, and we'll call this Owen Sound City Council meeting of November 17th to order. Welcome, everyone. We did not have an in-camera meeting this evening, and we do, however, have a guest from the Salvation Army Community Church. We'll invite Pastor David Kennedy to come and bring us a blessing this evening, please. Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Haswell, members of council, city staff, ladies and gentlemen, according to our calendar, Thanksgiving was a month ago. The turkey is all gone, the dressing's dried out, and for the neighbors who live to the south, and I mean a little further than Dundalk, it's an event that's yet to come. But with a genuine sense of appreciation, I would like to suggest that as the current city council term comes to an end, this really should be a day of thanksgiving. For the past 4 years, you have made yourselves available to serve our community as elected officials. You have given of yourselves, of your time, of your energies. You have spent countless hours in meetings, often wrestling with complex issues that have wide-ranging implications for our community, and you have done so with the best interests of our community in mind. Wisdom expressed freely from the comfort of one's easy chair without a willingness to serve is far too common in our society today, where it is more acceptable for those who choose not to lead to critique and criticize those who do. So in contrast, may I present to you our gift of gratitude and thanksgiving in this prayer of blessing. Would you pray with me? Father God, I give you thanks for the men and women who have, for the past 4 years, given of themselves to serve our city council. We acknowledge with gratitude their commitment and service to our community. May your divine wisdom guide and direct all who would give leadership, recognizing that the reputation of 1,000 years may be determined by the conduct of but 1 hour. Forgive us, O Lord, for being at times so sensitive about the things that do not matter, and so insensitive to the things that really do. For those who will be embracing new opportunities, we ask that you give them the ability to see not the door that has been closed for them, but rather the door which will be opened for them. And may ultimately our thanksgiving be directed to you, from whom all blessings flow. Amen. Amen. Thank you each, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Any members of council with an additional item for tonight's agenda? Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, I would like to make a personal comment at the end of the evening.
Sure. Councillor Purdon.
I'd like to do a very brief report on the affordable housing meeting on Friday last week.
Okay. Any other members of council? Any disclosure or staff? Any members of staff? Councillor Lemon whispers in my ear he has one. Any other members of staff? Disclosure of pecuniary interest, please. Anybody? Seeing none, confirmation of the minutes of the regular council meeting from October 20th, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purdon, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 20th, 2014, as printed be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Minutes of the special council meeting held on November 3rd, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purdon, that the minutes of the special council meeting held on November 3, 2014, as printed be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. A resolution moving council into committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purdon, that the City Council now go into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're now in Committee of the Whole. We do not have any public meetings this evening. We do have one deputation, and I will just venture down to the podium and ask Tim Nichols-Harrison to join me at the podium, please. Welcome.
Thank you.
And congratulations. This is a night where we want to bring recognition to one of our own, the chair, or not the chair, but the chief librarian at the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library. I want to congratulate you on behalf of the City of Owen Sound. For 30 years, Tim has helped people work toward their employment and educational goals. And being appointed as CEO of the library 4 months ago, Tim has managed the library's adult learning literacy centers, Grey Bruce and Georgian, where he and his team of staff and volunteers helped adults strengthen their literacy skills and gain the confidence to pursue new opportunities. It must be very rewarding work.
Yes.
Yeah. Established in 2004, the Council of the Federation of Literacy Award acknowledges the importance of literacy as an essential building block in the development of a vibrant society and a prosperous economy. Recognizing Ontario's community leaders and helping people realize their fullest potential is part of the government's plan to invest in people, build modern infrastructure, and support a dynamic and innovative business climate. Sorry, that was a little bit of propaganda there, wasn't it? But I have to tell you that literacy is the key to so many things, and education and a job are two things to a successful community, or for a successful individual in a good community. So I thank you. This award is not given out lightly. This is an award that is recognized by the Premier of Ontario. It is recognized by Minister Riza Moridi, the Minister of Training, Colleges, University, Minister of Research and Innovation, and certainly by the Chair of the Owen Sound and North Grey Union Public Library and their board, Chair Richard Thomas. On behalf of the City of Owen Sound, Tim, I'd like to provide you with this certificate of recognition, and this is to congratulate you on the receipt of the 2014 Council of Federation of Literacy Award.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here in front of you tonight and to have a chance to say a couple words. This award, while it recognizes many things that I've been involved with over the years, is really due to working with a great group of people. The staff at the library and the staff at the Adult Learning Center are the people who do a lot of the work, and we come up with some great ideas and we move forward on things, and we've been able to impact the lives of some of the people in our community, and that's been very powerful. But it's not my work. It really is the work of the community, our volunteers, our staff, everyone who comes into the library and takes a step for themselves and looks at self-improvement from concepts of Andrew Carnegie on. So I thank you very much for the recognition for this award. At the same time, I really have to tell you, I'm so fortunate to work with so many amazing people that have made this possible. Thank you.
Congratulations. Public question period. Are there any members of the public here this evening that would like to ask a question of this council? Please step up to the podium, and if you could give your name and address for the clerk, for the record, please.
Paul Foster, 233 4th Street, A East, Owen Sound. The faith blessing tonight is right on. I was very pleased with that faith blessing tonight. Over the past 2 months, I've watched and listened while this community approached election night. Did you know what I saw in print or heard is the reason why I stand before you tonight? I asked this council in the last meeting of your 4-year term, did you know your decision to voluntarily stand up for this community and run for elected seat around this council is appreciated? Did you know the time you dedicated working for this community was the time you sacrificed away from your family and friends in order to make a difference for this community, and it is appreciated? Did you know by accepting this position, even when you're on your personal time, whether it was at the farmer's market, the grocery store, or even out for dinner, was not actually time for yourself, but rather was time you spent working for the community, and it is appreciated. And did you know that even when individual opinions seem to differ and take different directions, collectively, your decisions move this community forward? You did make a difference. Thank you. I appreciate that you stood up and took charge of the community and made this place a place where you wanted to live. Thank you.
Well, that's the best question I've heard in a long time. Thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. Correspondence received. We have my favorite pen pal these days, the Ombudsman of Ontario. We have a report from Andre Marin. This is with regards to allegations of wrongdoing. What is Council's direction on this? Sure. Councillor Purdon.
I think we will receive the report. Very good to hear that we didn't do anything untoward, and I love the title of the report, a contentious report. It's very good to know that, or contentious lot, that the Ombudsman apparently has a very good wit, or whoever wrote the report.
In fairness, the Ombudsman serves a very practical and useful role in the province, and should be respected and utilized by members of the public when they do have a concern or a question around appropriateness of council or individual council members' behaviors. I think that it's important that that citizens feel free to contact the Ombudsman with those concerns. When the concerns, however, are politically motivated and frivolous, I think that that's an abuse of the office, and it's an unfortunate situation. This seems to have worked out well for all members of council and the members of public who put it forward, who had their concerns. So I think in fairness, the Ombudsman does serve a role. However, we do have a job to do as elected officials, and I think that there needs to be a little bit of an understanding of the flexibility in how we approach what we do and in responding to needs of the community. We do need to be able to talk to residents of our community and bring people together. Councillor Wright.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. I was out of the country when all this happened, so I was interested in reading the Ombudsman report to find out what it was all about, so that was fine. The only thing that bothered me was the very last paragraph, number 46, that said, "This report should be shared with Council for the City of Owen Sound and made available to the public as soon as possible and no later than the next council meeting." And I certainly recall a councillor asking about the report, and we were all told that it would not be available until the next council meeting, so I just point that out. I don't know if there's an answer for that or not, and there doesn't need to be, but I hope the next time we get a report that it is given according to the instructions from the Ombudsman.
Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship. I feel that the right to petition, which the Ombudsman performs that function for our actions, because we have to be responsible for our actions, and I agree with Councillor Wright. In the future, it should be a policy, and we can't make future decisions at this point because we are lame duck. But I intend to bring it up before the next council. When one of these comes in, it will be immediately going on the agenda. Whether or not the agenda has been sent out or not, because we're sending it out electronically, there's no reason it cannot be added. I feel that, to me, is very important, and I will bring it up when the new council convenes at an appropriate time, so that if we ever get one of these reports in the future, and it's quite possible we will, that immediately it goes public, because I think there are a lot of people who are asking questions why it didn't go public, and I think more damage was done to the credibility of the councillors, the currently elected councillors, by holding it back, and because there's nothing that anyone on staff can do with the report except to pass it on to us. That is a document that staff cannot adjust, change, or in any way, so there's no reason why it could not come forward.
I'm going to go to the city manager just in terms of timelines of when this was received and the next council meeting.
Well, thank you, Your Worship, to members of council. Just for clarification purposes, this came to the municipality as a draft, and the mayor and the clerk were allowed to review it. And that, then and only then, was it to go to the next council meeting, and that was after the council meeting being referred to. So it went to the first available council meeting, which is this evening.
The question I have, and I may have to ask the ombudsman, why does it have to be reviewed? Because it is a quasi-judicial decision of which neither the mayor nor any staff can change.
If I could, Your Worship, through to Councillor Lemon, staff from the Ombudsman's office, as a matter of practice, provide a draft to ensure that the facts in the letter are correct.
I will seek clarification on further clarification.
Further discussion to the motion. Councillor Body.
Just one thing to the city manager. I did notice that the report wasn't dated, and I don't know if that's an oversight from the ombudsman or if that's their regular practice. So that's caused some of the confusion. You would think those things would come out dated on the date that he signs it, but I couldn't find a date anywhere in the report.
If I could, Your Worship, fair enough, it simply says October 2014 on it.
Further discussion to the report.
Call the question.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Linda Miles Gallinger, Chair of the Tom Thompson Art Gallery Board of Management, Board Membership and Constitution. It's Council's direction on this. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have any, the letter, as it's stated, talks about changing the board, and the length of terms will be based on the competencies and the needs of the organization. So I have no problem with that sort of principle statement. What I am concerned with, there's no meat to the rest of it, I guess you'd say, as to how exactly that will work. The letter states that somebody could be there for 1 year, somebody that could be there for 10 years. So I have no problem receiving this correspondence, but perhaps ask for a further report, a staff report on exactly how would that work. Because our current process, there's a sunset clause, there's, people are appointed for periods of time, and I'm not exactly sure how this would work. If it'd be reviewed yearly, I'm not sure. So I guess my motion is receive the correspondence and ask for a report back, I guess from the director, our gallery director, on how the specifics of how this might work.
Sure. Well, motion on the floor. Lemon, please.
Your Worship, I actually was going to move a motion to table because this council has no power to act into the future, and because we are lame duck. And I think, and I would make a motion that it be tabled for the first regular meeting of the next council to be discussed.
Okay, to the tabling motion. All those in favor? Just to the tabling motion. All those opposed? Everybody's opposed. That's defeated. Back to the original motion. And Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. I applaud the board of the gallery. In fact, what they're proposing to do is in line with best practices for charitable and not-for-profit organizations and organizations that are governed by a board of directors, is to establish skills-based boards. And the board would determine what skills they need and then actively set out to recruit members to the board who can bring those skills. And there are, with different organizations, different skill sets required, but it is a best practice. However, I agree with Councillor McManaman that there need to be term limits, and everybody who's appointed to a board needs to be appointed for a fixed term. There is no suggestion that there needs to be a sunset clause. There is no suggestion that people couldn't be reappointed, but otherwise you would end up in a situation where somebody might be appointed to an open-ended term and they could be there for life, literally, with no nice, polite mechanism to ask somebody to step aside after they have met and fulfilled all their competencies. Many of the boards and committees that the city operates, for example, have varying terms from 1 to 3 years. Many other organizations have fixed terms for their board members, but certainly allow board members to reapply. And I would just ask that those issues be addressed in the report that Councillor McManaman has asked for.
Any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Purdon.
This is more in line of questions. I support both the motion and the direction that the Tom board is taking in terms of getting the best people with the best skill set on their board. My question was more about how the process will work. The process that they're describing would work if the Tom was a not-for-profit and at an arm's length from the city. But I think now the process is more that board members are approved by council, at least for some of our board of management. They come to council for approval as well. And I wasn't sure whether that was the case with the library. Certainly is with the DIA. And whether that would be a change in the current practice or if that's where we're headed. That's more of a question, whether those board members normally would come for approval by council.
I think those questions will be part of what will be addressed in this particular report. Councillor Body?
Yeah, and the gallery board was looking at being able to, as Bill has described, bring in specific people for specific projects or issues for a short period of time. Presently, it is still a management board of the city, so it has to follow the city rules. Once, or if and when it becomes incorporated on its own, it's going to have specific bylaws that will set up these types of questions anyway. So one way or the other, these questions are going to have to be answered. I'm not sure. This request, I suppose, asks what they're thinking in theory, but it just leaves too many things vague, I think, and it would make sense to make sure that what they do is lines up with what the committee of the city has to do. So that report makes sense.
Okay, further discussion to the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have nominations to the board of Ontario Good Roads Association. The time period has been extended. It's council's direction on this. Councillor Wright?
I move that unless there is anyone here that has a burning desire to sit on the Ogre board, I move that we receive it, that usually the county is the one that sends the names in.
We've already sent names in at the county as well, so.
Yeah.
Motion to receive. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. We have a resolution respecting the decision to eliminate home-to-home postal delivery from the town of Collingwood, and I believe we have a copy of an earlier motion that this council made. What is council's direction on this, please? Councillor Wright.
I would, because we've already replied to this, I would receive that letter, but I think we should acknowledge the Collingwood letter and send them a copy of the letter we sent in quite a while ago. I mean, we're in support of it, but we've already done our share.
This was, thank you for that motion. This was added to the council agenda for tonight at the request of one council member. So that's why we're looking at it here. To the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a series of consent agenda items, starting with a heritage property tax relief agreement with the owners of a number of heritage properties. an agreement with the Boy Scouts to use Harrison Park to have their winter camp out, an agreement for the use of the Julie MacArthur Regional Rec Center for the AAA Minor Hockey Association South Central AAA qualifier. Always wonder how kids even remember that long of a title. And a report from the facilities booking coordinator with regards to an execution of an agreement with the Attack for a concert on January 23rd. Who will it be? It's council's direction. Councillor Lemon.
A question I have of the acting clerk, is there anything in the legislation that prohibits us from passing any of these items?
No, there isn't.
In that case, I would move the consent agenda.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the, what do we have here? We have a report, my goodness. Verbal report from the police chief. We're here already. Black Clawson Kennedy property. We have a brief verbal update. Thank you, Chief, for attending this evening on the status of the grass at BCK.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is a very brief report. I understand there might be some questions. One of the areas that was a concern before was the fact that there were sunken areas that had been dug out on the property and they hadn't been filled in by the current owner. In 2005, there was an outstanding work order on the premise, on the lot, to bring it up to standards. At that time, there was a resolution passed by the council of that day that said that the filling in of the hole didn't have to happen. All they had to do was to continue with the fence, continue with dust control, and continue with the weeds and monitoring the weeds and keeping those down. So that is why those holes haven't been filled in to this point, and that's why there isn't any enforcement on those holes. The issue, though, comes back to, because they're there, the jump has to be on this premise or on this lot in the spring before birds decide to nest in those areas, so that we can get crews in there, or they can get crews in there, not us, and look after their obligations to keep the weeds down. So that's where we're targeting that.
Thank you. So as we had all anticipated, that once the snow fell, it would become less of an eyesore, and now that we're all wishing for lots of snow, our issue could be well
I'm not one
melted
wishing for
away
lots
by
of snow.
spring.
There were 3 motor vehicle accidents on my way in today, so.
Summer drivers forgetting
Exactly.
it's winter. A few questions for you, I think, and we'll keep these questions pretty specific if we can. Councillor Lemon?
Through your worship to the chief. I happened to check our requirements under the code for fencing materials, which they used, and it requires it to be either pressure-treated wood or painted. And I'm not a lumber expert, but those look like standard 2x4s that were not pressure-treated, which were used. I think we're going to have to keep a watching brief on that, because the ones particularly at the ground level are going to get very wet and spruce rots very, very quickly. And so this isn't I wish the heck they'd used the proper lumber. I'd have a great deal more confidence in the sustainability of the fence.
In the owner's defense, the original fence that's there, or the repairs that were done so at the request of the city, and the wood was applied through the city's contract with the contractor to put it on there. This was in 2006, I believe. So that's pre-me even being in the city, so I can't comment on that, but it's just...
Pre this council.
Pre this council, that wood appeared on there, and it's to stabilize the top of the fence so the fence doesn't fall over in one direction or the other. That's the reason behind it. Yes, but any of the wood that's low-lying has a chance to rot there, so they will continue to check. The bylaw enforcement officers will continue to make sure that that is sound.
I did not realize that we were the the guys, because that law has been around for a long time about using, example, you have to use galvanized nails and things like that so they don't rust out. And I did not know that the city was involved in that, and it's unfortunate because we should have been a positive example.
That was a decision made previous council to this council. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to thank the chief for coming here tonight to address this issue. Even though the snow's on the ground, it's still
Still going to be an issue.
We still need to wrap it up for this year. Moving forward, so you've answered the question on the holes. Moving forward, your staff in the spring, or they have been inspecting that property how often?
They're on a twice a month, so every 2 weeks they're through the place to inspect. They do a walk around. That's out of the car, walking around the whole premise to make sure that the fence is in the entirety is conforming. And then they also do drive-bys to make sure that there hasn't been something happen where somebody's parked a car and driven through the fence or something like that as well. So they do that drive-by as often as twice a week, just to make sure things are okay.
And then the other issue was they have on the mowing the grass, if that's what we'll call it, they were, especially later in the year, sort of on top of that. The issue was around those low-lying areas and the weeds growing up through them, which they couldn't mow. How do you anticipate that being handled moving forward?
Well, we're going to, or we already have, we've diary dated it so that we'll be looking in January, February to talk to the owner and the contractor to make sure they're on and ready to go as soon as the first snow is out, so that the weeds are looked after, so that there aren't birds nesting in there, and we can keep it, they can keep it looking the way it should. And if it doesn't, then we will take the action that we need to take. Compliance, again, being where we're after, but we will look at this.
So they'll be mowing it and taking care of those weeds, the two
Yes.
issues, starting in the spring.
Yeah,
All right, well, thank you for coming again tonight, appreciate it.
my pleasure.
Councillor Twaddle?
Yeah, I have a question, and it may not be appropriate to the chief. It may be something that just would be of interest to the new council. You said it was a 2006 resolution of council that said they didn't have to fill the low line?
2005.
2005. So I'm just wondering, for the benefit of the new council, whether it would be possible or appropriate for that resolution to be rescinded. That's not an answer I expect anybody to be able to give tonight, but I think that's information that might be of interest to the new council.
Could I speak on the enforcement of that, sir?
Certainly.
The problem would be for 9 years, you've said they didn't have to do it, and now you're saying they would. That would cause our enforcement people and any justice of the peace who would hear that charge great concern.
And that's really the information that I was expecting that would come forward. Thank you.
Councillor Purdon?
Or just to follow up on that I think the idea of having birds nesting there is just fine. So we've not talked about any of that, why that's such a tragic thing to have birds nesting in a little slough and raising little ones. I don't really get it at all, why that's such a problem. So I'm not going to be on council, but I would be happy to see the ditch stay there and the weeds grow up around to provide cover and have a nice little flock of birds in there. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes. Of course, what I'd like to see is an actual development, and I'm very optimistic that next year we may see something like that. Thank you very much for coming, Chief, and thank you to the enforcement staff for continuing to enforce the standards that this council has enacted.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, Your Worship. And may I just add, thank you all for your support over your term, council. I really appreciated it.
Thank you. We have a report from the city manager with regards to a code of conduct investigation. It was brought forward a couple of weeks prior to the municipal election. What's council's discussion on that particular item? 12B2, page 126. Councillor Wright.
Motion to receive.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Councillor Twaddle is opposed. Motion still carried. Thank you. report from the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism with regards to the 3-year agreement between the Entrepreneurship Branch, Ministry of Research and Innovation, and the City of Owen Sound. This is an agreement that will continue to, basically will entrench the support and ensure funding for the Small Business Enterprise Center here in Owen Sound, which personally I think is a vital part to the future of this city. Councillor Lemon.
I, with great pleasure, would move the motion, the recommendation. It's interesting that we only put 15, I think it's 15,000, Steve, into the Business Enterprise Center a year, and we get a huge amount of bang for our buck on that. And having provincial ministry offices and various areas in that office offsets the cost to the city, but also benefits the business people and people looking to get into business in the city of Owen Sound. So this is good news and great news, actually.
Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Mr. Furness, is this an increase in funding, or is it this basically the same amount?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's basically the same amount. They've just changed the way the structure is going to be. It used to be an annual renewal. This way, it's 3 years, it's a fixed amount. There's additional programs that are offered, and if you offer those programs, you get additional funding. And of course, our manager, Jane Phillips, you can't show her a carrot and she'll go after it, so I don't think there's a program we haven't gone after, right, Jane? Which sometimes causes other challenges because she only has so much time, but very successful, and it's a different format, and we look forward. But generally, the program will continue. And to answer the other question we provide is in-kind support, so all our financial accounting, management, our systems, our IT, that's the other part of what we provide. So.
Question, Councillor Body.
And how many files approximately does Jane and her staff deal with a year?
How many consultations do they do?
Yeah.
Jane? Sure. I can quote a number, but you have it right there.
I do. I just happened to do it today. So over the last 8 months, actually, we did over 400 consultations. So that's one-on-one consultations. Through the, we have over 1,000 inquiries, so those are telephone calls and walk-ins, so those are separate from the consultations. The self-employment benefit program, which is not this ministry, by the way, in question of the funding, so that's another $237,000 we received to run that program. It's netted program, of course. That program over the last 4 intakes, I guess, we've started 41 businesses that are still running it. Over the last 8 years, about 150 under that program. Lots of other, and the seminars and workshops, we've had 68 we've done in the last 8 months of workshops and seminars.
So not a bad investment for 15,000.
Yeah, very much appreciated though. It's worked out well. Actually, it's 15 years in April that we've been in existence, so we appreciate the support very much.
One of the success stories, that's for sure. Thank you. Any further questions for Steve? Councillor Purdon.
This isn't a question, but at our last Economic Development Committee meeting, we were talking about that there's room for more young people to access the programs. And I just thought, while this is televised and while we're talking about the Business Enterprise Center, it might be a good time for listeners to pass that word around, that there's room for more, even though I can't imagine how Jane does all it right now and her staff, but that she was saying that they're looking for more young people.
If you're a young person, whether you're in school or not, there are programs here to support you and mentors.
Further, Councillor Chamberlain.
And if I could just send out some more praise. When we were at the Chamber of Commerce dinner this year, some of the award winners were indeed graduates from Ms. Phillips' work over there, and I think I'll just mention a couple of them. Elsie's became the Business of the Year, and the Bleeding Carrot was voted the most popular, and that was just some. the businesses in this town are very, very well served by that program, and we're very proud of it.
Thank you. Yes, it's a great partnership with the province of Ontario.
Indeed. Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We have a report from Manager of Economic Development, and this is with regards to an expansion of the current business. This is 4 acres of industrial lands to McNabb Construction. What's council's direction? Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move the recommendation. Anything that's going to increase our business presence is positive for the community in terms of jobs and in terms of the future.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. This is as a result of Councillor Purdon's motion, which Council supported for an FOI on harbor reports, and all 5,000 pages. So I'm sure Councillor Lemon has read each one thoroughly.
I've started.
Councillor Purdon.
Of receiving the report, and I'd like just to say I'm very pleased how timely that this has been done, getting all the 5,000 pages, and I'm looking forward to reading them as well.
I'll look forward to the executive summary. Any discussion on this? Councillor Twaddle.
Just want to be clear that the motion is the recommendation, which is to post this on our website? Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. So that anyone else who's storm stayed this winter, which there'll be a few days, you can read this. There'll be some interesting information in there, though, which will indemnify us all. Counselor, you're getting a demotion. City Manager.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make it clear that staff have not technically reviewed this information. We do have a clause in the report that if it is council's wish, we could have them peer reviewed. That would be a minimum, I think, of a $20,000 cost. So if members of the public phone me to ask me for clarification on any of these reports, I'm not sure I can help them.
I think that'll be a good discussion for the next council. Thank you. Councillor Body.
I was just going to suggest that maybe we send it to the city manager for a review and a report back to council on what's
on
in
Monday?
it. If we can get it back by next week, it'd be
Sure.
great.
Well, that's one way to trim that management team. 2014 municipal election accessibility. Did we vote on that last one? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let's back up. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. This is report 14043 with regards to accessibility in municipal elections. Councillor Lemon.
I would move we receive the report. I think there's some follow-up that needs to happen in respect to that.
Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's not directly to this report, but there was an issue in South Bruce Peninsula where election staff made some physical changes to ballots in order for them to be read by the equipment. I'm not sure whether that was appropriate according to their rules. Certainly from my background in election work, I would say that was inappropriate because it might render the ballot unverifiable in a subsequent recount in a close election. I think the issue was that the ballots in Wyerton or in South Bruce Peninsula were received by mail, fed into a reader similar to the ones that we used in Owen Sound. If they couldn't be read because people used a check mark or an X, then according to media reports, election officials would take a pen and fill in the circle and then feed them through the machine so they could be read. I personally believe that's inappropriate, And I would just encourage that going forward for the next election, I believe otherwise use of the optical readers worked very well. The only place where this might have been an issue would have been in ballots coming from the special polls in the long-term care and the retirement homes. My recommendation would be, if the ballots cannot be read through the scanner, that they be counted manually rather than in any way altered. I think that's totally inappropriate. Under federal and provincial election legislation, the test when you're counting a ballot is the intention of the elector clear? So regardless of the kind of mark that's made, if the polling officials counting the ballot believe that the intention of the elector was clear, then that's a good ballot and should be counted. But I don't believe that under any circumstances a ballot should ever be altered by an election official. Certainly it would make for a very interesting discussion if there was ever a judicial recount. So I would just encourage going forward that our election procedure take that into account, that and it's not an onerous task to count ballots that can't be scanned but are otherwise the intention of the elector is clear. Thank you.
Some good points there. Further discussion? Councillor Purdon.
I'd just like to thank all of the city staff for all of the work they put into the election and the running of the election. I'm sure there'll be a report coming forward, but I won't see it. And I really thank the work of the staff. It's a huge job to pull off an election, and I think it went very well.
Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I just wondered, the scanner that were in the polls, would it not kick out a ballot that it couldn't count? So part of the problem, I think, is solved if the ballot doesn't go accepted by the machine, then the person can correct it. But when you do a mail-in, you don't have that advantage, that the person can correct it. So I understand the councillor's comment, but I was thinking, I remember some discussion saying that the ballot would be kicked back if there was something that caused it not to be able to be read.
I'm going to go to Councillor Twaddle on that.
Well, that's
Councillor
correct.
Lemon.
That's correct, Councillor Lemon, except that the scanners weren't used in the special polls. Those ballots were simply put into a ballot box. Same ballot, but it was put into a ballot box, brought back to City Hall, and scanned long after the elector had left the polling station.
Oh, I didn't realize
So that was my point, was with regards to those ballots.
Yeah, I can see your point. It was just that small number of ballots, because that is not a huge number.
That was my point, Councillor Lemon.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We have a report from the purchasing agent with regards to water main strategic planning consulting services. Council's direction on this. This is to allow the next council to get off and running with a strategic plan well in advance of something. Councillor Twaddle.
Yes, I would move the recommendation that recommend the hiring of Lura Consulting at a price of $41,060 as the highest scoring proponent. I think it's been a long time since the strategic plan was done as extensively as proposed, beginning early in 2015. Probably 15 years, maybe more than that, since the last full-blown strategic plan was done. I think this is, the last time it was done this way, there was a significant amount of public involvement and public consultation. There were probably 6 or 8 at least different sessions conducted at different times, and they were all well-attended, and people were very engaged. Since then, the existing strategic plan has simply been updated. It's time to do a much more full-blown approach.
Councillor Body.
Question for Ms. Corsi. Other than the price point, do we know anything else about Laura Consulting? Do they have a characteristic or anything you can describe and give us more information?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I'm very pleased to note that Laura Consulting, probably in the size of municipalities such as Owen Sound, has the best reputation in the province for their very robust public participation model. They use a variety of methods, and I'll just use this opportunity to say we wanted to bring this report forward so we get them under contract, but for the council-elect members in the audience, we will be bringing to you a discussion on what sort of public participation you want to have. So we have not in any way changed how we're going to go about this. One of your very first decisions is going to be on the public process.
Further discussion? Councillor Lemon.
How many firms bid on this?
In the report.
I can't remember. I just wondered, have we ever used these people before?
Yes. Councillor, we used Laura in,
I thought we used them before on something.
I believe, waste management report many, many years ago, but
Okay, fine. I just, the name rang a bell and I couldn't place what it was. 'Cause
as
I
with
knew-
any of these consultants, you know, the concern is often that you end up with a cookie cutter strategic plan that's the same as any strategic plan in any community across Ontario and across Canada. So it's really up to the community and the elected council to ensure that it reflects the reality of this community and isn't just a template that's used over and over and over again, which is often what is presented. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We now have a report with regards to a water main. This is a directional bore on 6th Avenue West on the 1100 block. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Question for the city manager, I guess the director isn't here. This work has already taken place, is that correct?
Yes, it has.
And that's fine, it discusses in the report. My concern isn't about the work, it's more about the process. So this was already approved and moved forward on your and the director's say-so. So that's allowed under the, what amount is allowed under the bylaw? That's my question.
Through you, Your Worship, as it was approved in budget, we were really talking about just a budget overrun, and in discussion with the Director of Operations, due to the fire flows, it was decided at a management level that we did need to go ahead and get this work done. So, and over $100,000 certainly is a figure that we would come back to council on.
And so there, you've kind of, so that's the reason it was already a budgeted item, just the overage is the amount that technically had to be approved. I mean, yeah, I think you've explained it. Okay, thank you. I'll move the recommendation.
Question. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Director of Community Services. This is a request on behalf of RibFest regarding a refund of damage deposit. It's council's direction on this item. Councillor McManaman.
I was ready. Mine won't, can you bring it up on the,
You maybe put that report up on the screen for all
mine
of
won't come up
council.
either, so maybe
People are
everybody's
having a
having
bit
the
of a
same.
problem.
Could you read the recommendation? Sure, that's all right.
Recommendation is that in consideration of staff report CES 14151 respecting a request by Ray Utila on behalf of RibFest regarding a refund of the damage deposit. City Council provide direction. So staff is looking for a direction on whether to return the damage deposit or use it to pay for problems.
And staff's preference in the report.
Yes, but the recommendation is just that we provide direction.
Councillor McManaman.
So, Your Worship, my motion would be that we deny the request. The organizers of the event signed a contract with us, well aware that there was a damage deposit. Just about every contract, including many we see before us tonight, have a damage deposit. And I suppose the biggest reason would be if, when you see some of these pictures and saw some of the way the park ended up, through no fault of anyone, that's why there's a damage deposit in case of inclement weather and things like that. If it's not paid by this event, it's paid by the taxpayer. So it's not magic money, it comes from somewhere. So I would move that we deny the request.
Further discussion? Councillor Burden?
I just had a question about precedence with this. It's kind of a balancing act about how we work with people who hold large events and deal with weather. So I know Summer Folk's been running down there for years and years, and there's probably other events at the Kelso Beach Park. Do we have any precedent where we haven't returned a damage deposit, or we have, or there's been damage, or just a little more context, I think, for this type of event?
I'll go to the Director of Community Services. I know it does happen.
Through you, Your Worship, we've pointed out that in the 3 previous years for RibFest, although the weather hasn't been perfect any particular year, we have been able to refund the whole damage deposit. We did hold a deposit on another event, but it wasn't related to damage to the field. It was related to other fees that weren't paid to other departments in the city. I'm not aware of any time where we've held a deposit on a group like Summer Folk that the damage wasn't repaired by the group who had used the facilities.
Further discussion, Councillor McManaman.
Sorry, and then you raised a question from Ms. Coulter. So if damage like this had been done before, the group would have the option of fixing it themselves to the satisfaction of the manager of parks.
Through you, Your Worship, they were given the opportunity to price repairing the damage themselves, yes.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, then can I just have clarification? Did they repair any of it? Those pictures we saw, that it was our Parks Board that had to fix all that up?
Through you, Your Worship, the damage has not yet been repaired, and park staff will undertake those repairs, weather permitting this fall, if not in the spring.
I see.
You know, it really is one of those unfortunate things that the weather just did not cooperate, and we do have to protect the interests of the city on this, and certainly want to see this move forward in future years. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Manager of Planning and Heritage. This is with regards to the McNabb site plan approval. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Could I ask for staff to just give a brief overview of this proposal?
Please. I'll go to the Director of Community Services.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. This is the property that Mr. Furness had the report on tonight regarding the land sale by the city. So the city has received an application by GM Blue Plan on behalf of John McNabb Construction to permit the construction of a 539 or 6,300 square foot building on a property they've purchased on the south side of 23rd Street East. The property will have a building, a new entrance, as well as an outdoor storage yard and an area of outdoor fuel sales. In terms of the official plan, the lands are designated employment, and the permitted uses in the official plan contemplate a contractor's yard as well as the outdoor storage. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the property is zoned M2 or heavy industrial, and the contractor's yard and outdoor and indoor storage are permitted in that zone, and the site plan conforms to the required site and building regulations for that zone. Between the time of writing the report and today, the site plan is slightly modified. Mr. Smith can put that on the screen for you. The issue was they had to move the driveway a little bit because there was a bell service box that wasn't located on their original survey, and they've done that now. It doesn't impact any of the zoning conformity in terms of the proposal. In terms of parking, ramps, and curbing, the plan shown today in the report, it talks about the curbing. That's shown on the revised plan. The parking is compliant. The driveway is paved in the parking area. The area of outdoor storage is gravel. There is, the plan will be presented to Accessibility Advisory Committee on Monday, but there are the required parking spaces. There's a nice aisle that provides access to the building and a barrier-free entrance to that building. The area outside is well lit with packs on the building, so committee will see that on Monday. A landscaping plan has actually been received today. In terms of stormwater management, that's been reviewed by engineering and Gray Sauble Conservation Authority. In consideration of the staff report regarding the request for site plan approval, staff are recommending council grant site plan approval subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix A, and also that council authorize a bylaw to allow the execution of a site plan agreement.
Discussion, Councillor Purdon.
Is there a motion on the floor? Because if not, I would move the recommendation.
That would help get the discussion started. Thank you. Councillor Lemon.
Just one question. From what has been said, I'm sure accessibility will approve, but don't we have to make that conditional on approval from accessibility because it has to statutorily go to them?
It is included in Appendix A, Condition 3, Councillor.
Okay. But I think council should be aware of that.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Quick question on the stormwater management of the site. There's some work required by the city to make this all work. Could you just, realizing Mr. Becking's not here, but would you be able to comment on that? Because I wasn't quite sure what exactly was required by the city.
There were plans for this area in terms of stormwater management, how the water would be managed from the entire site, keeping in mind these were lands owned by the city. When the city sold the property, there was a small area for a swale retained by the city on the west side of the subject property. So there will need to be a swale built there by the city. Mr. Becking would maybe be better to get back to council with the exact budget impact, but as we've noted, it would come to capital budget for 2015.
Okay. Any further discussion to this item? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have 3 sets of minutes from boards and committees for approval, first one being a bylaw committee meeting from November the 5th. Councillor Adair.
I'll move all the minutes, Your Worship, the bylaw, the ad hoc development committee, development charges committee, and economic development and tourism committee.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I find that the minutes of the Economic Development and Tourism Committee, where they talk about activities supporting youth, I think if Mr. Furness is here, I wouldn't mind him just running over those. I think that's very, I think that needs to be, those minutes need to be made public, because when we talk about attracting keeping our young people here, and there's been a lot of talk about the quality of life, retaining and expanding business, attracting new investment, and how do we keep our young people here. Would that be appropriate?
Certainly,
Your Worship.
Certainly, and Councillor, Mr. Furness, if you're prepared to speak for a few moments to that specific part of the minutes, certainly, just to clarify, these are public minutes. These are not anything but public minutes.
5 seconds. So if I remember correctly, there was a series of things we had done, and it was a report on youth, a number of things we're doing in part. There it is. So our three principal things that we've focused on is most of our activities, and this continues on, centers around quality of life or pride of place, retention and expansion of business, and then the attraction of new investment. So if you go down a little bit further. So each of these, there's a number of things that we do when you look at them in a whole, support youth, and I think we want to energize that and do some more work on this area. I know there's a working committee previously that's been looking at that and meeting, and I believe is meeting again. Is that not right? Friday? Yeah. So support of Georgian College is one of the overriding key factors we can do to support our youth, not only our business, but our youth, and the continuing growth of the college in all areas is very, very critically important. And you've heard some recent work down at the Fire Med Center and Grey County supporting that, but there's a lot of other programs going on at the college, and there's a lot of other continuing discussion. But probably the single most important asset that we have for our youth, retention of youth. The Enterprise Center, of course, and the province, it should be noted that the province is putting a lot of resources into supporting youth and the entrepreneurship of youth. We have to encourage our young people to become more entrepreneurial, to look and create their own job and not fend for themselves, but to be creative, as opposed to coming out and asking, where can I find that job? And so a number of the programs that the provincial government has implemented are around that. And you'll also see some of our effort around supporting junior achievement, which has also been going into the schools, talking about literacy, financial literacy at a younger age. And I think that's an interesting point, is you can't wait till youth get to be in grade 11 or 12 to start saying to them, hey, why don't you look at the resources around for starting a business? The film industry cluster is an interesting one. This came out of a creative mixer. We had some people come forward and say, look, I work down in Toronto, but I live here. We think we can attract some of this business to Owen Sound in our area. So to our surprise, shouldn't really surprise us, but we're growing this list of talent on a list, and it's actually getting longer and longer of the number of people that live in our area that have connections to this industry. And we're putting together a package, and I believe it's very close to being ready, and then we'll go down and pitch that to the provincial government. They have a particular arm where they an inventory. So just quickly, I talked about junior achievement. The film festival at the library, we're going to be sponsoring, tourism is sponsoring a contest for young people. This is similar to our other contest we did a few years ago around I Love Owen Sound, but we thought we'd tie it in with the film festival at the library. EMC and the Blue Water School Board are hosting a session, I believe in March, where they're going to take grade 10 students, tour some manufacturing facilities, and then end up at Georgian College for a tour of the college, and hopefully have some of the HR directors talk to them. That's being put together by Dave Barrett from the Blue Water School Board and Al Diggins from EMC. And of course, job fairs. We had a successful one last year. We're planning on having another one in partnership with the YMCA. And we found that seasonally, there's a lot of employers looking to hire young people, but we also have a number of employers looking to hire full-time. So when you put it all together, there is quite a bit of going on, and that's just what we're trying to encourage. So does that answer?
That's, yeah,
Right.
thank you. I
Good
appreciate
overview.
that, yes.
Sure, there'll be lots of opportunities in the future to hear more on this as well. Councillor Purdon.
I'd just like to add, although it's not part of that youth strategy, under the Welcoming Communities part of the Economic Development Committee, there's a new tool that AMAFRA has made available to communities like ours. It's an assessment tool to look at where your community is in terms of its ability to attract newcomers and youth. So it basically gives you a factual basis of information on where we sit compared to other communities in Ontario. And I think it's a really good tool, and other communities have used it to pull data and information together to have a common shared database So there's a lot of data in communities that doesn't get collected because each agency or organization just uses it for their own purposes. And so that's been the experience, for example, of a community like Peterborough that piloted this OMAFRA tool. They found that when they did it, they pulled together all of the information about how attractive your community is in terms of attracting newcomers, but youth retention. So I just would put that out, not to lose that perhaps. There's free training on how to use the tool. I've had a look at it. They sent it out to us to have a look at it. It's kind of one of those database things that are beyond me, but for people who can do that kind of analysis, I think it would give us as a community a really good baseline, and it also then informs planning and strategies for the future. So I just didn't want to lose that.
Discussion, Councillor Body.
Mr. Furness, maybe you said this, maybe I missed it. Youth is up to age 30?
Well, that's a moving target. The provincial program, some of the provincial programs offered through the Enterprise Center, yes, 30, right, 30 and under, up to 30? 29, to be clear.
Like a Futurepreneur program, which is another federal line up to 34.
Right. And some are companies.
So some of the programs, the Enterprise Center up to age 34, some of them are up to age 29 that is considered youth under their funding programs to help set up entrepreneurial businesses. Good, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or discussion on any of these minutes? Councillor Body.
Yeah, moving to the next one, I see we've got the Development Charge Ad Hoc Committee, which I think is a committee of operations. Can we maybe get a verbal update from whoever chairs it on what's going on there?
Who chairs that? Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. Yes, at the meeting that was held, it was really a presentation by the consultants on what development charges are, what they're intended to pay for. Very briefly, that is for future growth-related capital. So new development, whether it's commercial or residential, creates over time the need for growth in the city. It may be upsizing underground services, it may be increasing the capacity of roads and so on. The purpose of development charges is to put the cost of future growth-related capital expenditures onto the developer as opposed to right across the tax base. In the past, council has decided to, I don't think we've ever in our development charges charged the full amount that would be allowed under the legislation and under the calculation that is done. And in fact, in each case, council has chosen to phase in the development charges. The next step will be for the consultant who will have taken all the information from staff on future capital and identified out of future capital projects what portion of that would be growth related. And the legislation is very specific in what is allowed. They'll come back to committee and ultimately to council with a, not so much with a recommendation, but with an explanation of what could legitimately be charged as development charges against future growth-related capital. This is projects within, I believe it's a 5-year window.
Yes.
So that you can't go out 20 years or 25 years, but projects that would happen within the next 5 years. And then very careful calculation about what portion of that capital project is replacement of existing, or what portion is necessitated because of growth. I believe, because there'll be a new council, a new operations committee going forward, I believe that that presentation will be made again at the time when the calculations come forward. And then the process right now is an exercise in mathematics. When all that information comes forward, it then becomes a political decision. How much of future growth-related capital do you want to charge developers today? And how much of future growth-related capital do you want to put on the tax base? And that becomes a decision around the council table. The development charges need to be reviewed every 5 years. And I believe the current bylaw expires March the 31st. So the next council will need to make their decision on development charges prior to March the 31st.
Pretty soon. That's the kind of executive summary I like. Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
Just a quick question to that to the city manager, and I agree, Councillor Tomato, that was a good overview. One of the most confusing things, certainly, for a new council, well, this might be, well, tax policy is probably the most confusing thing, but this might be second. Is there a that review that this committee looked at the very first meeting, is there a thought to having the new council look at that or discuss that?
Ms.
Well, if I could, through your worship, through to Councillor McManaman, we're actually going to do one better than that. We're going to bring Mr. Gary Scanlon up to talk to council during orientation. And then all those materials will also be made available.
Great, thank you.
Further discussion? Anything in any of these sets of minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have one set. Oh, we don't have any in-camera minutes. Other business. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, I wanted to thank our community for the opportunity to represent them for the last 4 years. The experience to me was indeed an in-depth learning, very rewarding and interesting. Also, thank you to the city staff and the fellow councillors for their support, especially through the loss of my daughter the last few weeks. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Purdon.
Yes, I'd also like to thank the community for letting me sit here, and I've enjoyed it a great deal, and for all the support from both staff and other councillors before I go. But I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the Affordable Housing Forum, which happened on Friday. It was hosted by Grey County and CMHC. And I just want the public to know how important it is to support affordable housing, and for the council and the new council coming in, the critical need for affordable housing in both Owen Sound and Grey and Bruce counties. So there's an excellent overview, and it was also an opportunity to hear about Grey County's 10-year housing plan, which includes strategies for retaining and creating more affordable housing and homelessness prevention as well. And some strategies that were being used in other communities to support affordable housing and people helping people. What I found most interesting at that forum was the direct link between housing and health, and the amazing amount of money as a society we save when we provide decent and adequate housing for people, and how essential it is to see the big picture of housing and health together. And there's a definite role for municipalities and cities to make sure that they're doing everything that they can to make sure that people are well housed and safely housed in the community. and in particular around bylaw enforcement. So there is a committee at the moment in Grey Bruce that's being headed by the health unit, looking at called the Above Standard Housing Pilot Project. So they're looking at how bylaws can be used to support above standard housing in the community, and they're doing work throughout Grey County. So just a heads up that that will be coming our way to the new council and for the community as well. And we had an excellent report from London, a man whose name I will massacre if I try to say it. He's Dutch. But he was also saying that they've had excellent experience in London using their bylaws, their property standards bylaws, to insist on safe housing for people, and that the carrot approach is not the only approach that needs to be used by city councils, but also the stick works very effectively as well. So it was a really good day, and I'm sure there'll be more such things happening, so that's my report.
Certainly are issues in substandard housing throughout the city, and landlords avoiding compliance with property standards. Councillor Lemon.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would qualify the comment, some landlords, there's some very good landlords in this city who do have housing that is very, very affordable and also reasonable in terms of safety and health. Anyway, some good news. I found out on the weekend that we can expect a large increase in tourism next September in this area, because the auto show in Toronto in February is adding a new 10,000 square foot pavilion, and it's as a result of a partnership between the Cobble Beach Cours d'Excellence Car Show and the Art Gallery of Ontario. And they're going to be showing some of the antique and classic cars, which are really works of art, and going to be treated as such. And there's about 300,000 people visit this show every year. So they, who have not attended the Cours d'Excellence here, are going to have the opportunity to see part of what you see when you come out to this car show. In a report from the auto show, which I was able to get a copy of, this is a 3-year expansion at least, and it pays tribute to this area when it says the Cobble Beach Concours d'Excellence has within 2 short years established itself as a leading destination for the finest automobile collections in North America. Located along the shore of Georgian Bay, just outside of Owen Sound. It doesn't say that, but I threw that in. It's a picturesque vista attracting enthusiasts and collectors from across North America each September in a Canadian concours that surpasses many of the more established rivals. So this is some recognition of what's going on in our area. And with all those people going to Toronto to see the car show, they're going to have a touch of this area. And I think that's good news, because the concourse has been growing steadily. And the more people and the more tourists we can get, particularly in the shoulder season, is beneficial. So the car show's on in Toronto, February the 12th to the 22nd at the Metro Toronto Convention Center. And I think this is great news. There'll be 12 antique autos, which is just a small fraction of the number we see during the car show here. So this is good news for tourism.
Thank you. Go to the city manager, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. It is my honor and privilege now to recognize those members of council who won't be with us next month. I would like to acknowledge the words said by Pastor David Kennedy and Paul Foster, who took away all my notes of the great things I was going to say, so thank them. I'd like to say that, you know, it's your dedication to your role and your responsibilities as council that are just exemplary. Your commitment to good governance is one that I particularly appreciate. And most of all, what you've shown and all those nights that you're in meetings and all that time you gave to reading reports and meeting with constituents and doing all the things that are expected of members of council, that you radiate the love that you have for the city of Owen Sound. So I would like, on behalf of staff, council, and the residents of Owen Sound, to ask each of you individually come up and receive a small token of our appreciation. And I would like to start with Colleen Purdon. I'm going to read what the plaque says for Colleen, but I won't repeat it for each of you. So it's a plaque from the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound presented to Colleen Purdon in appreciation of 4 years of dedicated service, devotion, and support rendered by you in the public interest as a councillor, and for the worthwhile contribution that you have made toward the welfare and material development of this great city. Thank you so much.
I've never stood here before.
It's awkward, isn't it?
It is really awkward. But I would like to thank everyone. And as I said, I've really enjoyed being on council. And Jan said, don't cry. So I'll try hard not to. So I wish everybody the best, and the new council wish you the best.
I would now ask Jan Chamberlain to come forward. Again, Jan, thank you so much in recognition of your 4 years of dedicated service to the city.
I think I already said this. I didn't know this was happening at all. I guess I haven't been at one of these meetings before where it was an ending. Endings are hard, but I really appreciate everybody. Thank you.
You took me to that. I had a method to this. Councillor Twaddle. Again, everyone, I just note this is an appreciation of 17 years of dedicated service to this group. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I want to take just a moment to thank everybody who has supported me over the years. My involvement with the city actually began 20 years ago when I first started serving on advisory committee, the Waste Management Advisory Committee. I was elected 17 years ago. There's been one principle that's always been important to me. It was a significant factor in my decision to become involved as a committee member and ultimately to run for council. And that was the dedication and professionalism of the staff of the City of Owen Sound. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that. And there's one thing that I have always appreciated. It's a principle that has served all of us on council very well, and that is that staff are professional. They have expertise in their own areas of competence, and it is their obligation to give us their best professional advice. They need to tell us, and they need to continue to tell future councils what we need to hear, not what they think we want to hear. I can say that without exception, the staff have been willing to provide their best professional advice and to not try to temper that advice by anticipating the votes around this council table. And I think that's an essential principle that needs to be respected going forward. I want to thank staff for that. That doesn't mean that individual members of council always agree with the advice, but they're being given the best advice and then making the political decision that's required. I look back over 17 years on council and I think about the achievements, and there are many achievements that stand out, but I just want to mention 3 or 4. One, when the first really big decision that I was involved in was the transition of the Owen Sound Public Utilities Commission to Georgian Bay Energy, and ultimately the sale to Hydro One. I was privileged to be the chair of the committee that handled that transition. I was privileged to be the chairman of the board of Georgian Bay Energy and to lead the negotiations with Ontario Hydro and ultimately Hydro One. There's a $16.3 million endowment that is currently working for this community. The first big project that the interest from that fund paid for was the Big Dig downtown. And without the resources from that fund, we wouldn't have had such a spectacular downtown. The streetscape was paid for through that fund. Currently, the resources from that fund, the interest from that fund, are paying off the rec center. And that, to me, is the single biggest, most important project that this city, to this point, has taken on. And I was proud to have been a part of that. Councillor McManamon, your leadership on that was exemplary throughout. It was a very difficult decision, not for this council, but the council before that. It really came down to the 11th hour almost, but I've spent a lot of time there with my grandson over the past couple of years, and I'm very proud of that facility and proud of the fact that the resources from the Georgian Bay Energy Fund are being used to pay for that. So the capital cost of that facility is not on the tax base at all. And I think that's important to remember. The last really big project that is still going forward, and is one that I first started talking about in 2000, was the upgrade to secondary treatment at the wastewater treatment plant. I drive by it every day. I keep an eye on the progress. I'm very, very pleased to see that that project is going forward. It is a really important project, and I'm proud to say that I had some role in that as well. I want to thank the members of council I've served with over the years. I want to congratulate the new members of council. 4 of them are here this evening. I wish you great success on December the 1st when you take office, and I charge you with the responsibility for protecting the Georgian Bay Energy Fund on into the future, so that that fund goes back to about the early 1900s when the Owen Sound PUC was created. The asset was sold to Hydro One, and that money has been protected. I challenge you to carry on that legacy and to protect that fund, and only to use the income from it to do the kinds of things that make this the community where people want to live, and not be tempted by the quick opportunity to fix some of the challenging financial problems that exist. I do know that the interest from that is committed for about 20 years to pay off the rec center, but please keep that legacy alive. In 20 years, I may not be around at all to remind you. Thank you very much.
I now ask if Councillor Adair could come forward. Councilor Adair in appreciation of 19 years of service. Thank you so much.
Good words, Bill.
Well, thanks for setting the bar so high, Bill. I just want to say thank you to the people of Owen Sound for giving me the opportunity to serve you for this length of time. It's been a great education for me. And I'd like to thank the staff, all the staff, former staff, who really make our job a lot easier by providing us with the information that we need. And it's been a slice, and thanks very much.
And finally, if I could ask Mayor Haswell to come forward. This is an appreciation of 17 years of dedicated service. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to speak from the chair. Thank you very much to staff for this recognition. I decided I'd write down some things so I wouldn't go off madly in all directions and kind of condense 47 months. I thought I'd condense 47 months just by memory. And so council members, I'm sure, will think of other things that I miss. But I'm going to sort of put out some of the highlights that I think that are important. Everybody's heard of Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra was a pretty famous ball player. He's a catcher, he's a trainer, he's a manager, and he had some great lines. And the one line that comes to mind right away to me is, "The future ain't what it used to be." So back in 2010, this council marked a new beginning. A new mayor, 50% new council members. Sounding familiar? This council has made significant achievements and advanced Owen Sound to a position that is well poised for continued growth and the attraction of new investment, businesses, and opportunities. We have developed, this council, and advanced policies that have attracted and supported new investment, new growth, and new opportunities. We have left the city a stronger, more competitive Owen Sound than when we first took our seats in this council chamber 47 months ago. Relationships with provincial and federal counterparts are robust, and communication with our MP and our MPP are open. Relationships with Queen's Park has been strengthened over this term to the great benefit of Owen Sound. We have moved quickly to establish a progressive policy to engage. We did move quickly to establish a progressive policy to engage the city actively in social media. At the beginning of this term, and by 2011, Owen Sound was finally fully engaged in social media, and council supported by way of Grey County Council, the Southwestern Ontario Economic Alliance, and the Western Ontario Wardens Caucus, Smart Cities, Smart Communities Initiative, to advance economic development and to embrace a smart cities approach to local development. This council embraced a strict approach to city budget process, with public deliberations, input, and finalization of budget by February of each budget year. This provided staff with the direction needed from council to implement their work plans for that year. Council has managed tremendous cuts in transfer payments over this past 47 months from other levels of government. From what was originally a $2.1 million transfer payment to the City of Owen Sound, which has been dwindled down to this year $950,000, combined with increases in insurance costs, wages, benefits, and of course arbitrated awards of which the city has no control over. To manage these cuts, this council has faced significant financial pressures, recognizing the tenuous employment situation of our community, the lower than average income of residents in Owen Sound, the high population of seniors that are quite frankly struggling to maintain their own homes and pay their municipal taxes. This council addressed these pressures with minimal tax increases and implemented bold and innovative new approaches, to just name a few, to snow removal, to non-resident user fees of sports, contracting out of the enforcement and management of the parking division, transfer of bylaw management and enforcement to police services, contracting out of the management of the Owen Sound Billy Bishop Airport, streamlined transit delivery contract. The Owen Sound Police Services Board maintained a flatline budget for this term through effective management of resources and in large part to the innovative approach to serve as a dispatch center of excellence on a contract basis with fire and police services across Ontario, providing new employment opportunities in Owen Sound. Council supported and worked and moved quickly to work with developers to bring construction Center Suites, to bring to construction Center Suites and the Sydenham condo developments. These are significant developments in this community. These are the first of their kind in the history of this city that will provide upscale living accommodation that not only provides increased assessment overall to this community, but provides a broader range of residential choices as we try to attract new residents of all ages to this community. Council supported continued growth and expansion of large-scale retail development on the east side of the city. The large format LCBO built on a lot that had been vacant for decades. Of note here is the finalization of the sale of the former LCBO downtown to a local developer who has plans for redevelopment of this property in the very near future. This council brought shipping industry and Transport Canada closer than ever to a serious discussion on real divestiture and a future for the Owen Sound Harbor and the commercial port. Council, by way of my role as mayor, met and discussed emerging issues, direction, and strategic partnerships with all community stakeholders routinely. Stakeholders including manufacturers, financial and lending sectors, real estate professionals, developers, downtown landlords, and business owners. These meetings were to enhance and develop a more open and collaborative approach to a community-wide economic development plan, and this has been well established by this council. This council negotiated successfully a very complex, first of its kind in Ontario, public agreement between this municipality and First Nations, thus allowing the $48 million wastewater treatment plant to proceed. The relationship between the chiefs of local First Nations and this council were very positive and were very respectful. This council embraced a policy to advance solar panel installations on city property as a future revenue stream. There is great potential. As more panels are brought online and as staff grow to better understand the income potential, revenues will grow beyond the $16,000 annual income the city is currently receiving from these installations. The McQuay Tannery Seniors Center was established and has developed into a standalone facility of little cost to this city and under this council's watch. This continues to grow in its relevance to a large number of residents, both in and around Owen Sound. The former YMCA on 2nd Avenue East was adapted and reused thanks to the innovation and creative thinking of city staff and this council. We saved a building from being left vacant and created a home for over 100 professional jobs that were retained not only in the city, but in the downtown. This council's policies were recognized by Heritage Canada's most prestigious award, issued by the Prince of Wales, Prince Charles, for leadership in municipal heritage preservation, recognizing the many progressive policies and programs identified in the city's official plan, like the Heritage Property Tax Class, the Facade and Structural Improvement Program, the Community Improvement Area, just to name a few. Since 2010, this council has continued to strengthen the working relationship with Georgian College and the campus in Owen Sound. Along with Grey County, the city's support by way of advocacy, the county's support in terms of dollars, and other levels of government, the financial support and ongoing support of the Owen Sound campus's Marine Emergency Duty Training Program is paramount, and I cannot stress this enough, it is paramount to the future existence of that campus in Owen Sound. In the coming weeks, the city will be pleased to hear of a new 100-room multinational brand name hotel. It's planning to locate in Owen Sound in 2015. Much of this plan, of course, is hinged on the build of the Marine Emergency Duty Training Program at the Owen Sound campus. And again, both are vitally important projects for the city and the region, and are certainly a significant building block going forward. Since 2010, over 200 business licenses have been issued by the Clerk's Department at City Hall. Over 55% of all the businesses in Owen Sound have fewer than 5 employees. Clearly, small business and small industry is where a great deal of our future growth will be. The Canadian Bankers Association defines small business as one that qualifies for a loan authorization of $250,000. Anyone in business knows that's a very small startup. Export Canada defines small business as exported sales of under $1 million. So the attraction of small businesses, small industry innovators require progressive, competitive, and flexible policies that cities like Owen Sound can provide. With innovative and progressive policies like the development team approach, which this council implemented, the Chamber of Commerce must begin to show some leadership in every way possible to develop a marketing program that encourages supporting your local business community to ensure business retention and expansion. This is the Chamber's duty, its role, and its responsibility to its members and to this community. Later this week, in my final days as mayor, I will meet with the developer, city staff, further to advance and I hope to finalize a new small manufacturing industry at the former PPG location. I am extending here tonight an invitation to Mayor-elect Ian to join with me and the developer to ensure a smooth transition and the successful opening of this new employer in 2015. I can tell you the details about that later. In closing, to the management team, I want to thank you for your hard work, your professionalism, and your tireless commitment to the ongoing viability of this municipality. The provision of the expertise on which this council makes so many decisions is valued and very much respected by me. Thank you. To all council members here tonight, I thank you for all of your hard work and your commitment to serve your community and your neighbors as a councillor in these very, very challenging times. To those incumbents who will form part of the next council, good luck. Residents of Owen Sound, I'd like to thank all the residents of Owen Sound for their support over this past 17 years in various permutations as a councillor, a county councillor, and as a very brief run as mayor. We have made a tremendous difference in this community over that amount of time. Eleanor Roosevelt said, a woman's like a tea bag, and you can't tell how strong she is until you put her in some hot water. Well, over the past term and the 13 years prior to that as a councillor, yeah, I've been in plenty of hot water. And, well, it hasn't killed me yet. Governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he also said something. He said a couple of things. One thing he said was, in our society, the women who break down barriers are those who ignore the limits. And Arnold also said one more thing, was 3 words, actually. I'll be back. Thank you very much. Motion that the committee rise, please.
Committee rise and report.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We're now in formal session. A resolution adopting proceedings in committee of the whole, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purdon, that the action taken in committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be confirmed by this council.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Notices of motion. New business by resolution. Bylaws.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Purdon, that bylaws number 2014-184, 185, 186, 187, 188, 189, and 190 be passed and enacted.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We're adjourned. Good night.